Hello, great people. It's another Wednesday to give you the best when it comes to your geopolitical musings for global leaders on Amogate Radio Communications. I remain Abiodun Abari, and I'm excited to be with you. Rest assured, we'll continually support your organizations with actionable insight and analysis relevant for the optimization of cross border engagements and supply chain objectives. At Armorgate, we help you stay ready to deliver the delightful experience of your esteemed customers, no matter the inconsistency of governments and their policies. Yes, and the Nigerian leader has had a lot to say about meeting revenue target for the year in August, and a lot of people have taken on. Okay, that if the non-oil revenue target has been met for the year in August, then why the borrowing, why the rate of borrowing, or why they move to implement the 5% fuel tax for a government that is targeting a $1 trillion economy. So why stifle consumption? The increased consumption tax. Okay. You should look at innovative ways to raise revenue without raising taxes. If countries like Saudi Arabia can actually forego personal income tax, corporate tax for its citizens, and just actually focus on consumption tax, and even see Mr. Trump using tariffs to actually give tax relief, tax cuts to the American citizens, to the American taxpayer. Okay, in order to stimulate the economy, in order to stimulate consumption. All right. Nigerian government should actually move away from overtaxing its citizens. All right. It should also try to rationalize its budgets, realistic budgets, reduce the deficit, reduce government's concurrent expenditure. Was there any need to create a new ministry? Looking at the times that Nigeria is in, talking economically, it's not rational. It's not, it defies logic trying to expand government expenditure, recurrent expenditure at this point, when austere measures are meant to be implemented. Okay, and you also heard the speaker of the National Assembly, House of Representatives, also cautioning on the debt burden, right? So, and of course, talking about the debt burden, look at the key issues. The threshold of the debt to GDP ratio, which is about 40%, and data shows that we are hovering around that figure. All right, about borderline, and also look at the debt servicing revenue, debt servicing percentage of revenue. Was the percentage of debt servicing when it comes to revenue. Okay, and although we're doing so badly on that front, especially during the Buhari years, that we're almost going to 98%, but whereas now we are still hovering around about 70% of revenue going to debt servicing. All right, so and again, that is not healthy. That's not sustainable. All right, and when you look at the impact of the debts on GDP, it's not productive. It's not being felt, because our debt is growing at about 22%, and we have GDP growing about 3 to 4%. So, that means the debt is being applied to non-productive sectors of the economy. That's not critical, not actually impacting on the GDP. So, the debt policy is not creating the right impact. Okay, and when you look at it from the point of view that even the 2025 operation bill is yet to be implemented, right? even the capital element of the excuse me, the capital element of the 2025 appropriation bill. I mean, this year to be implemented, just not one area has been spent. So I look at that kind of performance, and of course, we had protect our contractors protesting that the Minister of Finance reneged on his promise that to actually ensure that they are paid, and for contrast that they've done since 2023 and all that. So, and look at the impact on the financial system. These contractors, got facilities from banks and not being able to pay the stress, on the financial system, and even government integrity. When you have a government contract, you're expected that sooner or later you'll be paid, and if you are given a guarantee that you'll be paid as so and so dates, I think government should be able to live up to its billing, so that government integrity is very, very important to be intact when it comes to financial dealings. So I believe resources should be directed towards critical sectors of the economy, like value addition in agriculture and agro-allied sector, and looking at Nigeria's advantage in cassava that cannot be emphasized. We are the largest producer of cassava in the whole world. We are not the largest exporter of cassava or added value cassava products. I usually talk about cassava peels. Cassava peels having a high level of carbohydrates, very excellent raw material for producing biogas for household cooking, also for generating electricity, the necessary technology, and of course bioethanol for fueling vehicles, providing cheap energy, reducing reliance on refined oil, fossil fuel. Right? Also renewable for pellets for industrial heating too. And you have to understand that the global bioenergy industry is about $500 billion. Right? So I believe Mr. President should start looking at that direction, investing critically in Nigerian economy. And that will actually help us move the ball forward as concerns citizens, the welfare. Okay, it's not palatable that Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world, having the highest number of poor people, despite not being the most populous country. And the benefits of green energy for cassava peels outside the employment creation. I mean, that's the innovation in renewable energy that it will actually spur among young people. You also talk about export earnings, right? Because of the increase in demand for biofuels, non-fossil fuel, okay, and also talk about cheap and accessible energy for the citizens, providing affordable energy to households across Africa, right? And also the environmental impact reduces greenhouse emissions because waste is being converted to fuel. So, Mr. President should look in that direction and impact the economy instead of thinking of taxation, taxing on borrowing and wasteful spending, and not thinking of rationalizing government spending and reducing inflated contracts, and trying to prioritize. So, people have questioned the purchase of presidential jets and also other luxury like the Cadillac for the president and so on. That's not actually depict the times that Nigeria is in. Okay, that is at times that Nigeria really needs to prioritize productive spending in order to impact the GDP and impact the economy, so that citizens can actually heave that sigh of relief, especially in the face of fuel subsidy removal and the floating of the Nigerian currency. Doing policies that actually have impacted the economy in the downward trajectory. So, and of course, the issue of security is of fundamental importance. There should be a holistic approach, reflecting deep understanding of the situation, deep understanding of the issues. Okay, adopting the right geopolitical approach, threading the needle. Look at, for instance, a Trump presidency who has zero tolerance for terrorism. Nigeria should be able to take advantage of that, as against what we had during the Obama years, relying on the Lee Act to deprive Nigeria weapon sales. Trump 1.0, he approved weapon sales. Okay, and of course he took out al-Baghdadi, the ISIS guy, took him out, and even the commander that was in charge then is not being rewarded. Trump 2.0 as the Joint Chief of Staff. Okay, so and even Trump 2.0 has actually taken out high-profile terrorists. Even Somalia, and they also approved weapon sales for Nigeria. Okay, so there should be that third of the needle geopolitically for Nigeria, and that's much we want to achieve geoeconomic objectives with BRICS. Now Nigeria is a partner country, and BRICS is actually involved in pivoting from a dollar, from the United States dollar, and you also have Chinese suppliers accepting naira now by passing the dollar. So that will actually lead to a stronger naira. But Trump will continue to disincentivize the attainment of the geoeconomic objectives of BRICS. All right, objectives of the single BRICS currency, objectives of a non-dollar denominated cross-border transaction. Encouraging countries to trade in their local currency, and Mr. Trump will be very, very much averse to that, the weakening of the United States dollar in the international payment and settlement system. And yes, you have to have that. Yes, you now have visa restrictions, long-term visa restrictions for Nigerians, no more long-term tourist visa, right? And of course, Nigerian officials have tried to explain that away, saying it's because they refused United States request to accept Venezuelan deportees. Okay, but United States has said it's not as a result of that. They reserve the right to actually alter the visa policy at any point in time without explanation. And of course, the tariffs too. The tariffs and $4.3 billion goods exported to the US last year, but mainly crude oil, and of course 66.5% up from 2023. All right, and you also have the United States donating aid as a result of hunger in Nigeria, aid to ameliorate hunger, $32.5 million dollars. Okay, India being the most populous country in the world, but Nigeria having the highest number of poor people. All right, so and also talking about weapons sales too. All right, so Nigeria really has to thread the needle in order to achieve its security objectives. I'm saying that the United States might be very, very important in its fight against terrorism in terms of weapon sales, and so of course its fight, support in this fight against the hunger. The donation, $2.5 million, and also visa restrictions that can serve as an incentive for Nigeria's participation in the geoeconomic activities of the BRICS geopolitical bloc. So for Mr. President, the security component is quite important to rejigging the economy towards optimum capacity. And onto matters in the Middle East. Yesterday, the IDF and the security service Shin Bet attacked a compound used by Hamas in Doha, Qatar, 2 days after Trump's warning to Hamas to accept the deal and release the hostages. And Hamas had said it was ready to resume negotiations immediately, right? And before the attack, and Trump has actually condemned Israel's airstrike on the Hamas compound in Doha, saying it was unilateral by Israel, and that Washington was not involved. I find the attack roguish. That was roguish. For me, 15 Israeli warplanes involved, dropping at least 10 munitions. We had several Hamas members killed, and even the son of a senior Hamas official, Khalil Alaya, his son also killed. Okay, Trump commented that bombing inside a sovereign nation, a close ally of the United States, Qatar is a close ally. Qatar just donated a jet to the United States. Okay, did not. Trump said that the action of Israel did not advance Israel or America's goals. Trump said, and I quote, "I view Qatar as a strong ally and friend, and feel very badly about the location of the attack." He went on to say, a decision made by Prime Minister Netanyahu, it was not a decision made by me, end of quote. And as soon as he was informed, he instructed Steve Witkoff, negotiator extraordinaire, to warn Qatar, but saying that the attack was too late to stop at that time, and they could only warn Qatar of the impending attack. Alright, and he said eliminating Hamas was worth the cost, but the incident was actually an unfortunate one. But there's still that opportunity for peace, that both parties should use the situation, the incident, as an opportunity to embrace peace, assuring Qatari leaders that there will be no repeat of such incident on Qatari soil any longer. Okay, and the Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani has actually denounced the strike, calling it an act of terrorism, and that the Emirates reserves the right to respond appropriately as it deems appropriate as a sovereign nation. That act of Prime Minister Netanyahu is actually undermines the regional stability, and Netanyahu is actually pursuing personal gains at the expense of regional stability, and that derails ongoing United States mediation. Okay, United States mediation in order to achieve a Gaza ceasefire and the release of the hostages. He called it a pivotal movement for the whole region, emphasizing that the strike will not be overlooked. Okay, that Netanyahu is actually disturbing regional stability for the sake of narcissistic delusion and personal gains. So that he will continue mediation efforts despite the incidents, but that the room for diplomacy is actually narrowing. Okay, and he rejected the claims of the United States of a heads up as 100% treacherous, that the warning only came 10 minutes after the attack started. Okay, so and the attack targeted negotiators working at the request of the United States, and Israel used radar undetectable weapons. However, as an immediate response, President Trump has directed Secretary Rubio to conclude a defense cooperation agreement in DCA with Qatar, doubling down on the United States' strategic interest in spite of the Israeli chaos. At this point, we'd like to take a break, and when we come back, it's still Geopolitical Musings for Global Leaders. Stay with us.
Harmogate, founded in 2008 out of a desire to build transgenerational structures for organizations, institutions, and nations. We have worked with large businesses, international development organizations, and public sector ministries and agencies. Harmogate, our uniqueness is that we do not just work for you, we work with you. For example, we do not leave you to the task after sourcing talent that will help the new hire settle into robust leadership development development programs. We are technical experts in advising and supporting institutions on strategy and leadership, artificial intelligence, strategic human resource management, public sector reform, finance, audit and tax, FAT, and strategic communications. We do all this and more out of a desire to transform nations through institutions and organizations. For further inquiries, email contact at thearmorgate.org or call +234 810 999 6666, +234 807 957 4151, and +161 0504 6026. www.thearmorgate.org. Armorgate, building to endure and transforming nations through institutions and organizations.
Welcome back. It's still Geopolitical Musings for Global Leaders on Armorgate Radio Communications and Abiodun Abari. And with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in focus, not a few watchers have seen it as a geopolitical response from China, with Prime Minister Modi of India making that visit in the face of defiance to Trump. Trump's 50% tariffs on India because India is buying cheap discount Russian energy to help his economy. All right. So, but in the context of Xi not attending the BRICS summit, and even though video presentation, unlike Putin, who did the video presentation, and I talked about the domestic issues then. All right, and I said that it seemed that Xi was stooping domestically to conquer, because no transparency in China. We only look at the facts, the snippets that we get, and in order to try to project what is happening. And then when Xi actually made 2 public appearances in a week and talked about Wu Yitao's signature lines in terms of scientific decision making, democratic decision making, and of course rule-based governance. For Xi, actually publicly saying these words of Hu Jintao, his sort of arch-rival, was a pointer to him actually trying to stoop domestically to conquer. So I'm not surprised that he is now being reinforced on domestic front, as shown at the SEO Summit, Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, where you had the Politburo and of course the Standing Committee members in full public and giving him support after the no-show in Brazil. And of course, Zhang Huxia, who is the vice chair when it comes to the PLA, him standing in the front row with other standing committee members, really points the snippets that we got then that he is actually the de facto head of the military and not Xi Jinping, as a result of the purging of Xi's loyalists in the military. Of course, he also had North Korea's Kim Jong-un, Putin, Modi and Xi Jinping showing their solidarity and trying to pass that message, a political message of unity, of military cooperation and geo-economic cooperation. All right, but let's try to really break some aspects of the Sino-Russia relations, for us to draw some fact-based or fact-backed inferences and insights that can provide relevant advisory. Okay, so you look at China and Russia, the display of love, the display of wisdom, of camaraderie and between Putin and Xi. Okay, always visiting each other. All right, but do they really 100% support each other? Do they really go all out for each other as being projected publicly? But what actually happens in private? What actually happens in negotiations? Okay, or are they just allies or partners of convenience? Okay, or will they go all out for each other, or they support each other in just pursuit of self-interest, in pursuit of self-preservation? All right, or are we having a desperate Russia who is ready to concede anything for China, right? Because of the bleeding is undergoing in Ukraine, the bleeding of his military, the bleeding of his economic resources, military and economic resources. All right, or is China taking advantage of Russia, because of the war and the sanctions by the West? All right, Russia is the most sanctioned country in history of the world. All right, so let's look at the energy pipeline deal between China and Russia, which has been stalling before the war. The negotiations have been stalling before the Russia-Ukraine war. All right, but it seems this deal is being reached, which there are people who feel could be massive for the Russian economy. All right, on the surface of it. All right, but in the context of China's support for Russia in the war, can we categorize the support as overwhelming enough to earn Russia a victory decisive, or it's just enough support to keep Russia in the war, and with that Russia will keep wearing away, wasting away its military and economic resources and getting weaker? Okay, and what about the claim of territory in Russia's Far East by China during this war? A small strategic area that has been in dispute for a long time. Russia has now allowed China to develop the land, something they previously vehemently opposed. Right? So is China actually taking advantage of Russia because in its moment of weakness, in its moment of need? Okay, and you reckon that China is purchasing Russian oil at massive discounts. Okay, and is the Russia-China partnership is it more or less a concession by Russia? Look at the delays characterizing the energy deals, right? And that impacts negatively on Russia, right? And why did China not sign the energy deal with Russia 3 years ago at the start of the war to help Russia, so to impact the war? Because when you talk about energy deals not being signed, it might not be really impactful for the war, except maybe the war, God forbid, goes on for a decade, because pipelines will have to be built, tankers, infrastructure, put time, and these things take place. All right, so I don't think China's intention is to help Russia achieve a decisive victory. Else, they will have signed this energy deal at the beginning of the war, and they'll be able to impact them, in the war. But because what we see now is a desperate Russia, because Ukraine is attacking the energy infrastructure, in Russia, and Russia is now desperate to get the oil out and the energy out, so that it doesn't lose out, and just getting out at massive discounts, and it's China taking advantage of that. So we look at those relations in context and the nuances, and be able to give the color of the water passing under the bridge for our clients to make informed decisions, no matter the vicissitudes in the geopolitical currents. And with that, we've come to the end of today's episode. I believe that the time we've spent together has been impactful. For me, it has been an incredible time. Until I come up on your devices again, please keep learning, keep improving, and keep impacting. It's bye-bye, and God bless. Thank you.